Requested to approach the microphone, state your name for the record, and limit the time used to present your remarks in order that others may be given an opportunity to speak. The normal process on any agenda item is for the chairperson to read the item from the agenda. The board is given an opportunity to comment on the issue and/or place a motion on the floor. An opportunity for discussion may be presented, at which time the public may participate and a roll call vote will follow. Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Patton.
Here.
Solosik.
Here.
Thompson.
Here. Okay. Would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4 on our agenda this morning is to approve the agenda. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as printed. Any discussion or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton.
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Item 5 on our agenda this morning is the consent agenda. First item is to approve the claims as audited and authorize the county auditor and recorder to issue payment of the same. The listings of claims paid at this meeting and all claims paid in the current month will be published as part of the first meeting the following month. Approve the Board of Supervisors minutes of the meeting of November 23rd, 2021. Accept and place on file the fiscal year 2021 Iowa DOT annual report. Appoint Teresa Jenkins to the Marshall County Board of Health effective January 1st, 2022 for a 3-year term. She will be replacing Rita Riskadal. We'd also like to thank Rita for her years of service. It's been extremely valuable. Our volunteers exemplify the mantra that good government requires active participation. We've been blessed in Marshall County every time we've asked anybody to serve in any capacity that we've never been refused. Everybody's always proudly stepped up, and it really makes it very pleasant to work in the system we do. I will entertain motions on approving the consent agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve the consent agenda as printed.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton.
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. In our agenda this morning, and for be respectful of somebody's times, we are going to move item number 16 in front of item number 6. Item number 16, we're going to have Jordan Gaffney speak to us from the county attorney's office. This has to do with having something that was tabled for the opioid effect on Marshall County. I would entertain a motion to remove this item from the table, please.
I would so move.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to remove this item from the table. Further discussion or comment? Roll call vote, please.
Patton.
Yes.
Solosik.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Jordan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we had received some of the documentation to participate in the opioid settlement agreement. Yesterday, I received additional information and additional documentation that they would like the counties to review, really all political subdivisions to review, including our county. It will include a resolution and a memorandum of understanding. We didn't have these items before, and they're kind of substantial in length and content. So I think it might be beneficial to give the board, because I like to provide you as much notice as possible so that you can review these things before you have to decide them. And it would be beneficial to table this until December 21st, which I think is your next meeting. But I'll get all that information and make sure it's supplied to you and post it on your agenda so the public has notice as well, so that you can review it and consider it in full before we decide on opioid litigation. But in essence, the agreements remain unchanged. They are standardizing the process by which the political subdivisions like Marshall County will participate in the agreement, which I think will be beneficial for the process for everybody and understanding essentially these are the rules that we play by and the regulations we need to follow. But I would recommend just taking some time for you guys to review that and come back and discuss at your next meeting.
Okay. I guess I will entertain a motion to put this back on the table until our next meeting, or do we need to just place it on?
If we don't take it off, we can take it off at our next meeting.
You just took
It just
it off.
rolls.
We just took it off.
Oh, we just took it off?
Yep.
Okay. No problem. Then
I
we-
will
then we-
entertain motions to put it right back on then, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to table this motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to table this motion until our next meeting. Any further discussion or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Jordan, thank you. Don't stick around for the rest of the meeting. I know you've got a lot of work to do, and feel free to run. Yes, sir.
For some reason,
Thank you, Jordan.
thank you. My extra one's the wrong one.
Okay, now we will move on to item number 6 in our agenda this morning, which is personnel changes. First one is to approve a new hire for the Sheriff's Department, Jailer Logan Andrews, permanent full-time at $19.88 an hour, with a start date on or after December 13th, 2021. Entertain motions on this item?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve Sheriff Department Jailer Logan Andrews, permanent full-time, $19.88 an hour, with a start date on or after December 13th of 2021.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve this. Before we take this vote, Sheriff, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to add that this is going to be a replacement as this position. And Mr. Andrews comes from our partners up north. We'll be replacing Jailer that left for his career in Texas. So again, this will be a replacement.
And does this get us back to full strength?
Now, we will actually still be down 2 jailer positions. And I caution the board, we also have a retirement on file at the end. Will actually be going on terminal vacation. Final date is in March. So we are still slowly gaining our staffing levels, but it's taking a while.
One step forward, 2 behind?
2 steps back.
Okay, well, your challenges continue. Okay, any other comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes. Next item on our agenda this morning is to approve a pay change for Paul Wyman, Maintenance Tech 1, from $18 to $19 an hour, effective 12/12/2021. Paul, are you on with us this morning?
this is Lucas.
All works for me. It's in the
Sorry.
grounds department. Yep.
I'm back to buildings. You want to speak to this, please?
Yeah, Paul was hired as a replacement for a long-term employee the first part of July, and this is essentially him coming off probation, and in that time he's proved himself a great addition to the department. So this is just kind of compensating him for getting through probation and doing a wonderful job. So.
If my memory serves me right, we did handle this in our budget meetings earlier this year, that this individual would come in at the lower rate, and then once Lucas felt he was off of probation, he would go up to the other one.
Right, and this is all budget neutral. The employee he replaced made a higher wage, so it's all within the budget.
Entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve a pay change for Paul Wyman, Maintenance Tech 1, from $18 an hour to $19 an hour, effective December 12th, 2021.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson.
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes. Item number 7 on our agenda this morning is to approve the funding agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, Federal Swap federal aid swap project number STBG-SWAP-C064, parentheses 136, FG-64, Iowa DOT agreement number 1-21-STBG-SWAP-022. Gets any longer and I'm going to need oxygen. Now, Paul, are you on with us this morning and want to bring us up to speed, please?
Yes, this is just a funding agreement for next year's resurfacing project that will be from the Story County line through roads to Iowa 330.
Okay. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the funding agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation, Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, Federal Aid Swap. And you just mentioned the project number, so I'm not going to repeat that.
No.
Mr. Chair, I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Paul, I do have a question on this, that it states that the funding shall be up to $1.5 million. Do we have a firm figure on what we're going to possibly get on this?
Well, it's in as a percentage. I mean, it can go up to 80% of the project, but the amount that we actually would get would depend on the results of the letting too.
Okay, I understand. Any other questions? Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, we have a motion and a second to approve. Roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Item number 8 on our agenda this morning is to approve an amendment to the Iowa Valley Community College District lease for the lease space at the Orpheum. Nan, you want to speak to this for a couple minutes, please?
Yes, this is currently our lease at the Orpheum goes through the end of this month, through December 31st of 21. This extends it through May 31st of 22. And there will be no additional rent compensation. Basically, we will cover all the utilities. Lucas's team goes in for daily cleaning, at least the trash. Those days they have jury trials, there's just a lot of people in there. So keeps it pretty busy. There's also item number 4 on here talks about the removal of some furniture and fixtures that they're going to move out and take back out to the college. So it's probably something we need to kind of look at exactly what that is, but we'll deal with that when we know exactly what it is.
Is the college going to remove the fixtures, or
Yes.
do we have to do it?
No,
Okay.
they'll do it.
All
The college will take out what they need. So no, we don't have to do anything, and it would be just letting the state know, because they have to provide the furniture for the courts, that something we previously were using is going to be going away, so.
Okay. Entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve amendment to the Ibccd lease for lease of space at the Orpheum building.
And I will second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor.
I should probably add something, you know how my brain works, Dave.
Okay.
I did speak with Theron Schutte about probably 3 weeks ago, and he is, there's some possibilities that we may be able to move this out a little bit further. I'm hoping that by March-ish, we really know where COVID is going, because the Orpheum space is due to COVID. That's why we're utilizing the space. It's not because, the Max building had adequate space up until the COVID, and I wouldn't say it was ideal. It was crowded, but crowded and COVID don't seem to go together very well. So we'll kind of see where we're at, and if we need to get a little bit more extension. Theron said he's willing to work with us.
I know, I just didn't know if we were ready to say anything about that yet.
We really
or not.
don't, we don't know if we need it.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to say how good the both the college and the school district is with working with us. It's just been a delight just to see everybody just work together and try to make it as good as it can for everybody. And Marshalltown and Marshall counties had a lot in the last 4 years, and it's nice to see we can just all pull together. That's been
Yep.
very refreshing.
I agree. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the college for their cooperation in using this space. Without it, it would have been a much greater hardship for everybody involved. Keep in mind that the college is also going through their construction right now, so they had actual needs for the space, and they have been good enough to allow us to have this, which has worked out well for the court system, and this is another great example of government entities working together for the benefit of the public. That being said, are there any other comments or questions? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 9 on our agenda this morning is resolution number 2021-0040, approving a 2080 agreement with Central Iowa Community Services. Bill, you're on this as our representative. Do you want to speak to this for a little bit?
Yes, the main reason for changing the 2080 agreement for CICS is we added some counties. We added 4 counties to the north of us. And when you do that, you have to be sure that they're included. And this is the reason for doing this. And there was a couple other small changes, but that's the main aspect of what the new 2080 is. And I would recommend that we approve this so we can be part of it.
Okay, that being said, the chair will entertain motions on this item, please.
I would make a motion then to adopt resolution 2021-0040, approving the 2080 agreement with Central Iowa Community Services.
Mr. Chair, I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve this 2080 agreement. Any further questions or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Item number 10 on our agenda this morning is to adopt the first reading of proposed amendment number 2021-01 to the Marshall County Ordinance number 21 to establish election precincts in Marshall County, not including the city of Marshalltown, and to set the hearing for December 21st, 2021, and the waiver of suspension of the second reading by board action.
I'm sneaking up on you.
Okay, you're in stealth mode.
I am in stealth mode. So Jesse's here with me as well today. We've done a lot of compiling and looking at all of this information. Melanie Ewald has been instrumental in getting us to where we're at. So what we're kind of looking at is trying to consolidate and reduce our number of polling locations. 2 years ago at the city school election, my precinct, that is currently Washington Township and Marietta Township, had 19 voters for the entire day. That's not very exciting for people that are working there, and we found that people don't want to work in those locations. So, yeah, good, thank you, James, that's a good share.
Hopefully I picked the right one.
Yeah, you did, very good. So one of them that we are getting rid of is consumers, so you'll see that Washington Township now goes down to Melbourne, and it puts, previously Eden and Logan were already together at Melbourne, at the Melbourne Rec Center, and I have been having Marietta and Washington drive down to Melbourne as well. For Marietta, that's a long ways.
Yes.
So moving Marietta then to go to Clemens, so kind of splitting those two there on the western side of the county. As we go along the south side of our county, Timber Creek, the little star there that's on the south side of Marshalltown, that's the out at Iowa Valley at the administration building is where we vote there. But we're going to add, what we're proposing is to add Jefferson Township. And Jefferson Township currently votes in Laurel. It's a really small space. and the numbers aren't real high there. So trying to get more voters as well, combining those two. Timber Creek had some pretty low voter turnout as well on the city school in 19. We've currently been having them go to Redeemer. So come on into town to vote. As we continue across the south side, Greencastle, that currently is voting in Gilman, combining them up to LeGrand. And good roads that direction. We looked at several things, not just, you know, the number of people and logistics, but also drive-wise. I had somebody mention, well, Gilman could go to the college. They would have to drive either through LeGrand or Laurel, and that seems kind of silly. So trying to make it so that it kind of flows better with the drive as well. As we go north, the Marion and Vienna voting in Green Mountain, that is not a change. That's how it was before. So I will say that our problem child is Taylor, Liscum, and Bangor. Previously, Liscum and Bangor went to Liscum. We can't get workers there. Jesse, it was a struggle. She really struggled. We have one person that wants to work there. It's a beautiful facility there. Their community center is a great location, but it's not the direction people travel. People tend to be coming towards Marshalltown more. So you'll notice that when we still leave Liscum there, Taylor there has Albion. We'd really like to find a larger location in Albion, or we've talked to Mary Jo Batinger. She even suggested we could maybe do something a little different in organization at the fire station to maybe make it work better. So we're still working on it. The little funny red mark there, that's the airport. And we have talked to them at the airport, and they do not have a space that's climate controlled enough to have people sit there that long. So, which was interesting because we heard they used to vote there. So obviously something changed, but.
I don't remember that.
Mary Jo remembers working there.
You're not gonna.
She said it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But, so this is kind of our proposal. You'll see the numbers there. So in Bangor, Liscum, Taylor, that's 1,805. That is the total number of folks that live there. Jesse's done a lot of calculating on all of this and looking at the number of voters, and the locations will support that. So for example, Taylor, Liscum, and Bangor, since that's kind of our first one, if we looked at the total number of voters at the polling place at the general in 2020, which is always our higher number, we are at about 425. Nope, 525. Bad math. Carry the one. So that's a number. That's why we need a little bit bigger space for that. Obviously, though, when you look at where Albion's located with the 3 townships, it's the ideal spot to put it. Everywhere else just works really nicely. Now, State Center doesn't change, but they've got a big number of people. LeGrand's adding a few. Gilman never had a huge number of voters there either, so that increase. And they've got a nice space over there too in their community center in LeGrand. So really, this is our first reading.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one works. Let's see if that one works. Can you hear me, Lacey?
I can.
Hi, Ken.
Good morning, Ken. Could you mute your microphone?
Lacey, can you
please?
hear me?
He'll get it.
Hello,
So-
Lacey.
There, I got it.
Thank you.
Although I was excited to hear the news.
I was, we would have been able to hear the news. So this is our first reading. What we're approving today would be approval of the first reading and waiving the second reading. So then on the 21st, we would have our public hearing along with our final reading.
Okay. Well,
And this is how we did it 10 years ago. So I'm not original in this way we did it. We copied what was done 10 years ago.
then, that being said, I'll entertain motions on adopting this first proposed reading and waiving the second.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the adoption of this first reading and to waive the second reading.
And I would second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion or comment?
Are you still planning, you've still got Liscum starred here. We're just leaving our options open.
We're leaving our
Right?
options open. If we're not comfortable with Albion, we will probably go the Liscum direction. Our Albion folks said they would travel to Liscum to work.
Okay,
They're true volunteers. I always call this job, yes, they do get paid, but it's really a volunteer job with a little bit of fun money.
Yeah.
They're not getting rich doing this, but
Not when they have to be there at 6 o'clock.
it'll be interesting to see what public comment, if any, we get on this.
it will. I've presented it once to an outside group. I'm going tonight to present it to another group. And, you know, anyone that wants me to come, I'd be happy to come and kind of give an overview and hand out some maps and take a look at it.
At one time, they had Bangor to Liberty also, I think, years ago.
The interesting thing there, we looked at that and having them go to Clemens. The issue is Liscum is in both townships, and that felt weird. The city of Liscum is in both Bangor and Liscum Township.
Yeah. And the only reason I remember that is I would pull people from Bangor for helpers for
Clemens.
what we're doing, so.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 11 on our agenda this morning is the Marshall County Actuarial Services discussion and possible action to approve and update the actuarial service agreement by and between Silverstone Group Incorporated and Marshall County, continuing through December 31st, 2022 for compliance with GATSB, which is the Government Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 75. Entertain motions on this item.
I would so move.
Then I would second that.
Okay,
And this is just a renewal. This is the same company we've used and
Yep.
I think everyone uses. So,
we have a motion and a second on the table to approve this extension. Any further questions or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Item number 12 on our agenda this morning is to approve a memorandum of understanding amendment to PPME, Physical Plant and Equipment Workers, Local 2003 Secondary Roads. This includes contract modifications for ratifications of wages beginning July 1st, 2023 at 3.25% across the board, and July 1st, 2024 at an additional 3.25% across the board wage increase, and they shall be effective on the pay period that includes July 1st. The duration of this contract will be a 2-year extension that will expire on June 30th, 2025. Entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve memorandum of understanding amendment to PPME Local 2003 Secondary Roads.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this memorandum of understanding. Any further questions or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 13 this morning is the Marshall County Radio Tower ownership discussion and possible action. Bring us up to speed, please, where we're at.
okay. One of the reasons, Bill and I talked about this a little bit, budget time is coming up for all of us, not just county, but for Kim, for Rhonda, for all of these groups. And
We're still good.
We're good.
Good call.
Okay. So we need to determine who's going to own the tower. Basically, the St. Anthony one is really the only one we have to determine ownership, because the LeGrand one is one that we are leasing from, yeah, using, I think really it is using. I think we did have to pay $1 from Iowa Rural Utilities Association. So our big question is St. Anthony, and really ownership determines, in my mind, insurance. You know, who's going to provide the insurance on that down the road for this next budget year.
It's a total insurance, which would be insurance for the tower, the equipment there, but also liability insurance. So it's
Yes.
be like a business insurance policy.
Yes, so currently, I think the Marshall County Communications Commission has agreed to fund the maintenance for the project. Okay, so that's one piece of it, that the maintenance is going to be handled there. So they will be levying for that. And that levy actually does flow through the county, but it's on their line items versus ours.
So the only real difference then would be the cost of insurance for the person, for the entity that owns it. Wouldn't be any other cost.
They would receive they would work up the lease then with the rent with Whitaker's. So that would have to transfer. Some of the things, the other things the owner's going to have to determine is access for outside agencies. If somebody wants to put something on the tower, the owner would be the one that would determine that, probably, as well as access fees for organizations. You know, we've got our county radio, but we've also got people like Unity Point utilizing it. And so they should have to pay some of the access fees, determining that.
So the owner would receive the income off of that tower?
Yes.
That's the way we intended it up front.
Have I missed anything, Rhonda, Kim, Joel?
There would almost have to be a governance board appointed by the board, or the board would act as that, to allow those entities access what equipment can be connected to that tower. You almost want a governance board that's made up of those subject matter experts, because there's all kinds of different equipment. We want to make sure that that equipment that they want to connect or utilize from the tower is compatible with public safety, like all the users that's actually on the tower. So it's a little bit of the technical side of things. So that's one option to think about. You know, obviously, with the commission, they do have a TAC that is already organized, a subcommittee of the commission. And I don't think, I'd have to check with the members of the commission, obviously, but that if the board decides to retain ownership of that equipment tower, those subject matter experts could also be ones rely on for that.
Thoughts?
One of the things that was discussed when we started putting this together was that the owner of the land could use that for his own farm. Later on, he said he wasn't interested. But our original talk was perhaps he might be.
I think it's still in the lease too.
It's still in the lease. It was just conversation with him. So we need to keep that in mind, that he has that ability to do that if it doesn't cause any problems with the income, the income and outgoing of our messages the way it is. So
It's basically GPS for his equipment in the area. It would, if he needed something put there.
So just, in the lease, what exactly is the wording? And the reason that I ask is if it's in the lease, then he has the authority to put it in there. Does he have to go through an approval process? Because working with enough technology, especially when it comes to communication.
It has to be in a,
They don't talk very well together.
yeah,
So I
it would be a
make
separate
sure-
unit. It'd be, and it's basically RDK technology, which when we talked, Mike Miller was there when they were talking about it during one of our initial meetings out there, and Mike said there's no problem with that.
This stuff changes all the time.
Yeah.
But if we allow other entities to be on there too, it'd be for the same thing would have to be done. This would have to be approved.
Like a cell company or something.
Another cell company, Unity Point, whoever wants to use that, it has to be.
My concern is, and I would have to double check this, because when it comes to encryption versus non-encryption, can one tap into the other and hear those radio frequencies?
Mike
if
didn't
you're
seem
on
to,
the
he said
same-
they've done it on other locations,
Okay,
allowing the farmer to have that for their, and it's just for that farm, just for his use. It's not, it doesn't go outside to any other farmers.
It wouldn't be for profit.
No, it is not for profit. It's just purely a,
If I remember right, he just wanted it for GPS for his.
yeah, for his RDK system, yeah. But I think right now it's on a machine shed at Justin's place. So,
So this would give him better distance.
yes, it could, it could. So, the other thing to keep in mind is anything that is for-profit, we have some issues because of the loan. We can't, you know, we need to at least research that before we approve anything like that.
Yeah.
So just making sure you all hear that again, that's on that committee. We've got to be
I think
careful on that.
It pretty well nixed it until we get it paid for.
How far out is the loan payment?
4.
We can pay it off in 4.
That's not very long. Yeah, I was gonna say,
I think it's a 7-year, if I remember right, but the first time we can pay it all off will be in 4, which we're hoping we can.
Does it have to be considered profit? Can it be like a compensation for,
I was thinking too.
like a reimbursement deal?
That's a possibility, but we'd have to work with the attorneys and
That's a pretty
Northwest to
fine
see.
line.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to promise anybody that at this
I would
point.
just be really
Yeah.
careful about who you let on when you're not charging, because then you're gonna be stuck with somebody not paying for.
Right, you wouldn't probably let a for-profit do that, no. That would,
Well, we've got possible action on
Yeah,
this. Do we want to
the-
keep this as discussion and think about
we
it
sure
longer?
can. The
or-
other piece to keep in mind is the equipment that's at each tower. So we've put some things at LeGrand, we've got some things that are at the Collins and Iowa Avenue that is our equipment as well. So it would also be the ownership of that equipment on each of those sites.
Almost need a list.
Well, we've got a list if you want to read through the several hundred pages from Raycom.
I don't want to do that today.
If I may, like our budgets, we've got to figure out this week to take it to commission for final approval to be posted next
Yeah,
month, so we gotta know.
Personally, I would have a tendency to say that the county should retain ownership.
I think most counties
Yeah,
are.
that's-
At
that's-
least until it's paid off, I mean,
yeah.
That is something that you could look at.
Or till it's
Right.
done. It's not going to be done until September-ish
Right.
of 20.
Because we're talking budgetary purposes.
right,
They're gonna need a quick answer. We're gonna need one fairly soon here.
We're in a position to do that at this point, so maybe you're right, that we should retain ownership on it.
I believe.
For this year.
That's my particular opinion.
Yeah, I would say just reassess it.
It can be changed
it can be changed in
anytime.
the future
Yes.
for the next year, it's just,
That being said, I would entertain motions to this.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve a motion that the Marshall County Radio Tower ownership would be by the supervisors.
Or retained with Marshall County.
Yeah, retained with Marshall County.
Okay.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for Marshall County to retain ownership of the Marshall County radio tower. Any further discussion or comment?
Plus all equipment.
Plus all equipment.
Mhm.
You also want to,
All equipment that belongs to us.
Mhm. Yeah, all the equipment that's on each tower that's for the Marshall
do
County.
you want to add anything about the group that?
What now?
The oversight group.
Yeah, I don't know. if you-
I don't think we want to at this point.
I don't think that's
all.
necessary
No.
just yet. It's not even built. We got plenty of time to come back to that. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Patton,
Yes.
Slosson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Item number 14 on our agenda this morning is process for weather closure for Marshall County, discussion and possible action.
This item was a result of James and I meeting previously. Last year, it seemed like we were very unorganized. We had a couple of days that had issues. I think 2 years ago, we had a day that the high was 25 below zero, and we did close the county that day. Most of the state closed. But James has a system where it's our cell phones, and we can send out messages to get that notification to folks. And I just wanted to kind of have us start thinking, I hope we don't have to use this at all. I hope we keep our nice warm temperatures that we have been having, and it's not an issue. I think previously when we were in the courthouse, departments kind of did it on their own, but with all of our departments combined there at Great Western Bank, I can't really close my department, and the treasurer's office, for example, stays open because I'm going to have public in our stuff.
Yeah, let's expand our discussion here a little bit. We've got people up there in basically the bank. We've got people at the jail. We got people down here doing the roads and trying to keep people from being in the ditch.
Mhm.
Okay, what's your thoughts there then?
I liked how James had in another, I think it was when you were working in another county, that the chairman of the board talked to the engineer and probably the building and grounds director and probably the sheriff.
That's what we've done in the past.
And made a decision. And a big problem is, I don't know that any of those conversations were happening when the roads were all closing.
The situation we've got now is also compounded with the fact that we are in the bank's building, and if the bank decides to close, that shuts us down.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really, until we get back in all our own facilities next year, somewhat at the whims of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I like your process of being able to communicate it, and
Mm-hmm. That's
yeah,
nice.
I think right now we should probably leave it between that communication between the sheriff,
Paul,
board chairman, Paul
engineer.
Geilenfeld, and also our individual departments that are within the bank to keep in contact. If the bank is going to shut down, it really will force our hand also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And last year, I think the one that we debated on, we ended up closing at 1:30. The bank closed at 1:45, but kept their drive open. So the bank proper was closed to the public. So
Right now, I think we just got to play this one by ear.
Mm-hmm. The main thing was whether we wanted to also keep that texting system, which I think it'd be really nice to have.
Still happy with it. It's great for emergency situations.
Yeah.
I know the SO has been using it for overtime notifications and call-outs. Hopefully it's been working well. We
Yeah.
just don't use it for the county side that often. We wanted to make sure it's still a resource you guys wanted to continue to maintain.
Does that take buy-in from like personal cell phones then?
Yeah, essentially, we just have to have people go and register, get with us when they get hired. Now that we've confirmed that this is something we want to continue, we're going to send out a flash notification to everybody just to test and then letting department heads know that they should contact their staff, make sure everybody got it, and there weren't any people that haven't been added. We find those people, we'll get them added into the platform, and we'll be good. I know that the sheriff's office administration staff on their union contract has it if the courthouse is closed. I think they're out as well. So we've added them, that if the courthouse annex downtown office is closed, they get notified so that they're not left in the lurch. Conservation might be similar to that.
Okay.
I can't remember what our cutoff time was. We used to have the decision to close or delay in the morning will be made by this time, and the staff have been asking what that is, because they start getting ready, they start getting on the road. I couldn't remember what the date or the time was.
Snow events, generally, secondary roads and the sheriff and I have been on the phone when I've done it in the past, when I've been chair, 6-ish.
So if we just say that the decision will be made by 7, give plenty of buffer.
We open at 8.
Yeah.
That seems.
Most people.
That's an hour and a half hour beforehand, should be more than adequate.
As our drop dead time. You know?
And there again, it's common sense.
Yeah.
Do we need motions on this item?
I don't think so.
I don't
More of
think
just
so.
to gauge your feelings.
we're
Yeah.
fine.
Wanting to do it.
Okay, let's move on then to item number 15 on our agenda this morning. Vaccination policy for COVID. This is for discussion only because the federal government still hasn't quite decided what they're gonna do, but we will get caught up in it sooner or later.
So right now, we have for the county, because we have more than 100 employees, OSHA is our overview board for us. You'll hear nursing homes, hospice talking about Medicare, Medicaid funding. They have different rules associated with those. So if you hear things around, we're different. So OSHA is to be our administrator and kind of our gatekeeper of this information. When I was on a call with other counties and cities here in Iowa, most folks have done a voluntary reach out to their employees to see who's vaccinated, to get the little copy of the card back, and kind of stating that this would be the policy depending on what happens in the courts, because right now it's all held up in the courts. So for us, for OSHA purposes right now, if you're not fully vaccinated, there would be weekly testing, a lot of discussion in that HR group of who pays for that testing, whether it was the city or county in question, or whether it was the employee specifically. So I don't know that we need to get down to any sort of detail like that, but I just wanted to kind of update you all that when all this really hit and came out, it was right as we were trying to get the election center ready in the election, and I just went, I don't have time.
I would say this is something we need to keep on our radar, but take no policy on it right now. My bet is this is going to wind up in the courts, and
I think my personal opinion is it'll end up in the courts so long it'll become a moot point.
we won't have to do a thing.
We won't have to do a thing, but I am going to contact department heads and let them know I'm going to reach out for volunteer information to come back, because previously when some of this was kicked in, it could be kicked in less than a week, and we wouldn't be able to implement everything and be ready. The fine for this is $14,000 per person, that you don't know the information, even if they are fully vaccinated. If we don't know, 14 grand per person. So
Considering fully vaccinated booster shot as
nope,
well?
nope, boosters don't matter. Yet. So that's kind of where we're at. I just wanted to kind of update and let everybody know it's weird. There's just nothing else you can say other than that.
These are strange times.
These are strange times.
There's still a lot of free testing available, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Well, we have to be controlling of it. There's rules with the testing. So I'm going to reach out to our public health nurse, seeing if we do it that way,
There
or,
are, and there, I know Walgreens is stuff in, so I mean, it's
But
not,
then we go back to who's paying for it.
they're free.
Mm,
They do know Polk County, they are.
Right, several was doing that.
Marshall County Public Health has availability to get them. Usually they're just sent directly to that person.
And see, we can't, that's not a legitimate test
Right.
according to the
But
OSHA rules.
Walgreens is through the window.
Walgreens would be.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, so there's a lot of things we can research, but I just wanted to kind of let people, we're gonna do a voluntary reach out. I'll communicate it to department heads first and let them know that, and then if people don't respond, they don't respond. But it could be very costly if it,
Let's just be prepared.
yeah, we're trying to be a Boy Scout here, and I just think that's at least to have a lot of the counties said they were getting about 65 to 70% response. So to me, that makes you not have, especially for us in the upper 180s, we could scamper pretty quickly to get the rest of those and figure out what we needed to do.
In that documentation, did they state anything on the people that their doctors have stated?
We can do a medical release or a religious exemption as well.
as long as they're-
As long as they have, so I will provide all that paperwork.
Okay, anything else on this item? Okay, moving on, we have previously tabled item number 16A because of waiting to see what the legislature is doing. Unless somebody wants to bring that off the table for any reason, we'll leave it there.
I'd say we leave it there at this time.
Okay. Item number 16B, we already discussed this morning with Jordan Gaffney, our county attorney, which is moving on to item number 17, which is public forum. This is a time set aside for the public to make comments on topics of county business other than those listed on this agenda. No action will be taken on any of these topics brought up in public forum. I would like to express our condolences to the family of Gordy Johnson. Gordy was a Marshall County Supervisor for 12 years. He's passed away. Visitation and services will be held at the Mitchell Family Funeral Home on Sunday, December 12th from 2 to 4. Will be visitation with the services immediately following. Anything else for the good of the order on public comment?
A couple of things. First, that was my pager going off, sorry. We're doing a test, so the new paging system for EMS, fire, and EMA cert is being tested out. We're on our 2.5 week, I think, right now. And the tests are all seem to be working. For the ones, we have one out in each department, and then a couple of roamers to make sure that the areas are covered. So this is totally different than the radio system, but it's taking over the voice paging that's currently being used for fire and EMS. CERT and EMA did not have pagers. I haven't had a pager in a long time. It's kind of like going backwards, but it is actually going to be really nice. They've got pretty much everything on the screen that you need. So as that page gets entered, it works its way into the pager, can be added to, so more additional information. So it'll be a good way, I think, a lot less, I think, task on your side, a lot less phone calls anyway, on the communication side. So hopefully as it gets, yeah, provided it works, so hopefully that'll be, so like myself, my CERT team, we work off phone calls through the communication center, so that's a lot of phone calling through them, so. So hopefully it'll be a good system. Have a big CERT, community emergency response team class coming up, so just kind of plugging that if anybody's interested in joining our class. It's an 8-week, 1 night a week class, and that makes you either eligible to join the team or just use the information and go back, take it back to your office, church, home, and use it for planning and preparedness. So.
Well, Kim, do you have a need for a number of people on the CERT?
We do. Taking the class doesn't guarantee that you make the team or have to be on the team, but like everything volunteer right now, they're down. We had a lot of people retire. We have a lot of baby boomers move out of the area and, move to where they want to retire, and just a variety of things, and we're losing a lot of volunteers in general, so. Yeah,
So we're-
EMS, fire, CERT, pretty much like everybody else, volunteers are just way down. So anybody interested in any of those can give me a call and I can put them in the right direction.
When the supervisors have their little radio meeting on the third Monday morning, would it be okay if we mention that and say that we
Absolutely,
need people to
Volunteers,
participate?
absolutely. Yeah.
And the pay is outstanding, correct?
It is, it
Okay.
is. A good thing about CERT, fire and EMS, they do require quite a bit of skill and training to do that. The CERT team kind of fills that gap between the citizen and the first responder. So we're filling those gaps so that law enforcement doesn't have to use their personnel to stand and block traffic, or things that we can do to fill those gaps. They can use their personnel to do what they're trained to do instead of the tasks that we can maybe fill in for. So, yeah, definitely that's a need. And then the hazard mitigation plan, I know I've talked to several of you about that, and a lot of you participated in it. It finally went from the contractor to the state, and the state will present it then to FEMA. So we're at that point of every 5 years it gets updated, and so it's in the hands of being reviewed. So that's a good sign. It went to be reviewed the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So I'm hoping, if all goes well, we hear back within a month to see that it's approved. So on that note, then the hazard mitigation grant is opened up for those that have an active and current approved hazard mitigation plan. Anytime that there's a disaster, either in your county or a contiguous county. So obviously we've got that open now and have had for some time because of the disasters we have experienced, not only here in the county, but in Iowa in general. That's something that a lot of our partners in that plan have tapped into to get things to mitigate the next disaster. So we have, I formed a committee to look at possibility of getting some sirens out in the county in the unincorporated areas. Those are areas that have some pretty good population groups out there that we can look around at that don't have a warning siren for tornadoes. We only use ours in the county for tornadoes. There are some other counties that do it differently. We reserve it just for tornado warnings and testing. That's only 2 times that they should go off so that people are really aware of what that's for. We don't use it for high winds because you usually don't get enough warning for that high wind. It's usually an event that starts there. The ratio was a little different. But so on that note, we have some communities that have sirens, some that choose not to, although they are eligible through the hazard mitigation grant to go and apply for those sirens on their own. But the unincorporated would have to come through the county. So I've applied basically through the Board of Supervisors for them to see what we could get and what our options would be. For the amount of sirens that we'd like to see, approximately 12 out in the unincorporated areas, we're looking at about a $360,000 grant. These are just preliminary numbers. I went ahead and put in a notice of interest just so it was a placeholder. We can always withdraw. And 15% of that would be county funds to match what the federal funds would. So for $360,000 worth of equipment, we would get it for about $54,000 if that's the price that we went for, if that's how many we went for. Currently, we've got a committee together. I've taken a contractor around to look at areas that could be higher density of population out in the unincorporated areas, get some ideas of what our coverage is. I've got some maps with me, some other maps where we went through to see what our coverage could be on a siren placed in those areas. And approximate cost around $30,000, give or take, depending on where the siren's placed. They're all the same type of siren, but where it's placed, if it's on electrical that's already there, or if we have to run it, we're trying to put them in places where there's already electrical there. There's already a transformer nearby. So we're looking at different possibilities there. We've got Melanie in GIS is working on, or going to work on within the next month. She should have a map to show us exactly where some of the other areas, we knew where some of the population density was, but we need to know all of them. Who's I'm missing?
There's been a lot of there's been a lot of work towards this. You know, when it comes to grants, they're not always around, and the potential of having another grant like this, I mean, we could have one in the next decade, maybe 2 decades, but we're looking further on down the road. So to be able to, you know, spend the 15% and mitigate that for Marshall County, I think I would hope that everyone feels that that would be an absolute benefit to the county, because it is important, it is vital, especially when it comes to, you know, that inclement weather. And, you know, as Kim has said, utilizing it only for the tornado sirens, we want to make sure people don't, you know, definitely become complacent to those sounds. We want to make sure that they understand that, you know, if that's going off, this is what's happening.
So when we started, we pulled a committee together. I pulled one of the board of supervisors. We've got Steve on there, Ron is on there, I'm on there, and we've got a couple of citizens out in the unincorporated areas that sit on that committee. We've met, I can't remember. So indoor warnings, I'm still promoting NOAA weather radios. At some point, I'd like to do another grant on that and push out new. We did 18 and a half years ago, right before I became, worked in emergency management, we did a grant that gave every household a NOAA weather radio. So these aren't intended to be indoor warning sirens, only outdoor warning sirens. And again, that's why we're looking at population density, places like Green Mountain where there's ball fields, things like that, that people would be out in the outdoors also. The initial thought behind the county portion, we were hoping that we'd have some kind of grant, some kind of monies extra, maybe ARPA, but that really didn't fit. We thought about lost revenue. Again, that didn't really fit.
It's not going to happen either.
So it's something that we're presenting. Again, it's just under comments right now, but something that we'd like you guys as board of supervisors to kind of think about. Just the bang for the buck that we could get for $360,000 worth of equipment, mitigating some major hazards out there, you know, warning our citizens, and getting that for around the 54,000. So
I know when I'm in northern Wisconsin, I even have it go off on my phone if I'm out fishing.
And that is, yes, that's an option too. We do have Alert Iowa. We do have some of the phones that, you know, people have, but we also have some people that don't carry them. So options, just multiple. And like Rhonda and I discussed with National Weather Service, we're a weather ready county. Takes a lot of steps to get through that weather ready county status, and we get rechecked every 3 years. And redundancy is what they basically ask. Redundancy. We've been very blessed that, you know, we've been able to warn people, especially in Marshalltown. You know, the hits that Marshalltown has taken, and the sirens have, for the majority of the time, worked. We've had some damage to them from the storms, but so yeah, just something to think about. We'd like to come back with more information as we gather it, as we gather the maps. Find out exactly where. So just like something for you guys to think about, and possibly come back at your next meeting and be on the agenda to present.
Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Brad Font, State Center Fire Department, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just real briefly, I want to circle back to the radio ownership. My apologies if I repeat some of the things Sheriff Phillips said. I had a difficult time understanding him when he was talking and everything he laid out, but I did hear him mention Radio Governance Board, and that is something that the county, as now making the decision to retain ownership of the system, that is something that will have to be done here sooner than later. There was a comment made, I think, saying we have plenty of time to work that out. And unfortunately, there are going to be decisions that need to be made before we accept ownership in September. Things like access fees, whether we allow permissions for outside agencies beyond Marshall County to have access to our talk groups. There will be a need to develop policies and procedures for users. And by that, I mean anyone that we allow in our system, assuring that they have a maintenance agreement on their radios so it does not burden or bear down on our system. And these are things that are going to have to be worked out long before we take ownership in September. So I just want to make sure that's a point that we don't prolong that process, down the road months and months. We had an instance here just a month ago, an outside agency wanted permission to program the Marshall County Fire Talk Group in their radios, and really no one has the authority to do that. A radio governance board or a subcommittee of the commission, being assigned those duties could do that. But those are things just to keep in the forefront here in the near future.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Anybody else on Zoom? There being none, we're going to move on to item number 18 on our agenda, which is adjournment. The next regular session is December 21st, 2021 at 9:05 a.m. All business to be acted upon at that session should be submitted to the County Auditor and Recorder's Office or to the Board of Supervisors' Office by Wednesday, December 15th, 2021 at 12 p.m. There being no further business to come before the board, this meeting is adjourned at 10:15 a.m.